Iowa did miss on Nate Pete, who is one of the two, I want to call him workhorse backs, but one of the two rotational backs at Stanford. Iowa had offered him in the portal, and he just committed to Missouri. So I'm a little surprised Iowa's been going after a running back at that, but to me, now again, they've shown that they are willing to do that with Mekhi Sargent and James Butler from Nevada. They've had success doing it, but I am a bit surprised that with Gavin Williams and LaShawn Williams performing as well as they did against Kentucky, that they were feeling that was a need. But they are young at that position. There's no question about it. But they miss on Pete. For anybody who was curious about the portal, Virginia Tech's Braxton Burmeister just committed to San Diego State. Kid from Texas Tech. Let me find that. Harrison Bailey from Tennessee. He committed to UNLV, Mark. We had talked about him. And then South Florida's, is it Cade Fortin? I don't know how you pronounce his last name. He's going to Arkansas.
Yeah.
And Henry Colombi, the kid from Texas Tech, is headed to Marshall, where Grant Wells, of course, he left and he's headed to West Virginia. So my count here, now just bring this up. My count here for quarterbacks, transfer portal quarterbacks, is Nebraska has nabbed two pretty big names. Now, Chubba Purdy didn't do much at Florida State. We can agree with that, right? He didn't.
Let's not call him a big name.
But there's no question about it that they nabbed a kid who, I mean, I would have probably been happy if Iowa could have gotten Purdy just to push who Iowa has in the room, and maybe he wins the job. I don't know. But they grabbed Purdy and they grabbed Thompson. So they grabbed two. You've got Auburn that grabbed Calzada. And then who did they just land today, Mark?
Shoot.
Auburn just
land today.
I'm going to find it here. Robbie Ashford.
Yeah.
From Oregon.
Baseball player. Yeah.
But they nabbed Calzada and Ashford. So, first of all, it's not happening. We know that it's not. Iowa's not going for a portal quarterback. The news did break out from the Register, reported this last week. Alex Padilla's dad apparently talked to the Register. I'm sure it was, really in-depth reporting. I'm sure it was a direct message on Twitter that was sent to Alex Padilla's father, who confirmed that Alex Padilla is not going anywhere right now. And it was presented as like this breaking news story. Alex Padilla returning. I found it kind of funny. But he is coming back for the spring. But here's the deal. Mark, you and I both know if Alex Padilla comes back and it's apparent to him that he's not gaining ground on Spencer Petras, at least not in the coaches' minds, there's no guarantee he's going to come back after the spring. Like, he could leave in the spring, and then Iowa's down to Labus and Petras, and then Carson Mayhew will be enrolling in the fall, but will probably be here this summer. So anyways, just find it kind of interesting. The quarterbacks are picked over. Tyson Fumichan, there's the question from Erica. Tyson Fumichan is still available, Mark, but there's not, again, it doesn't matter. Like, it's not happening. So we can talk about it all we want. It's just, it's just not happening. So
I don't get it. Caleb Williams is still out there.
Here, I'd like to be able to stay composed for the last couple minutes of the show, Mark. Don't make me get into a laughing fit. So Caleb Williams, Jackson Dart, they're still available, right?
Jackson Dart.
So let's just be real. So who is still available? Tyson Fumichan, Jackson Dart, Caleb Williams. Is there somebody else that I'm missing out there? I know that Jack Plummer from Purdue, rumor had it he was headed to Purdue, to Cal. I've never heard anything official on that. I'm assuming he is, but I don't think he's announced that formally. Is there anybody else that I'm missing that is a significant name?
I can't think of anyone.
Iowa has made it very clear, though, Mark, that they're not going to the portal. They've made that clear. They basically, without saying it, they've made that statement that in a year where there's more quarterbacks in the portal than ever, it's obvious that's not an interest at all from Iowa. So, and I had somebody that reached out, and I think it was this morning or yesterday or something, said, Iowa can't, a portal quarterback will not work here. A mobile quarterback will not work here unless the scheme changes. I think that was Kevin, one of our loyal listeners. But Mark, Brad Banks would have something to say about that, because Brad Banks is more mobile than anybody Iowa has on the roster, but that scheme did not change in 02. It was just a very good fit. And he didn't run a lot. We're not looking for a guy who's going to be, again, a Kyler Murray, but Brad Banks and Russell Wilson are perfect examples that you can be mobile in a pro-style system that involves a lot of I formation run plays. So, JT Daniels, that's the other one that I missed. Yeah. JT Daniels just entered. So it's just not happening. But just thought we'd bring that up just to tickle the ears of Iowa fans who are on here.
What would your response be? I would love to see your response and us to do a show after Iowa signed JT Daniels.
Jeez. What was it? Can we slide back up in the chat? Let me see if I can find this comment from one of our loyal listeners, and I want you to say his name. Mark, can you say his name and read the comment for our listeners?
You had to give me that one before I put my glasses on, right? Dr. Nigel Pisswater.
Okay, can you read the comment from Dr. Pisswater for us, please?
The good news is Iowa has picked up JT Daniels, Georgia quarterback, in the transfer portal. He reports that as news.
It's funny because Dr. Pisswater commented on a video here a few days ago and brought up JT Daniels, and he said, "Can Iowa get JT Daniels?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, why can't we have nice things?" I said, "Because we can't. That's all there is to it. We can't have. I mean, that's just." Mark, if you had to put a percentage chance on Iowa's chances of getting, I'm not saying if they went for him. I'm saying you tell me if the percentage chance that JT Daniels or Caleb Williams or Jackson Dart, any of those three end up coming to Iowa. Give me a percentage based on what you know and what you've seen these last few weeks.
Well, I would hate to put 0% on anything because anything's possible.
but it is zero. It is 0%.
1%. I'll go 1% because if they haven't gone after anyone yet, JT Daniels would fit the offense better than Caleb Williams. So he is a prototypical Iowa quarterback or recent Iowa quarterback. So
I'll tell you the scenario where Iowa would even pursue somebody in the portal at this point. Alex Padilla's girlfriend would have to move to like Hawaii and say, you either move out here and transfer to Hawaii or we're done. Spencer Petras would have to get some, I don't even know what would, I think Spencer Petras is so married to this program. And I don't mean that in a necessarily a bad way, but
yeah,
Spencer Petras is so married to this program. I think Kirk Ferentz is so married to Spencer Petras. That's why I will be very surprised if Alex Padilla wins this job. I know a lot of people want that to happen. I mean, I've advocated for that. I think he's the better of the two options, in my opinion. And I think you can make the claim either way, Mark. You can make the claim that Petras was a little bit better. I mean, I don't agree with that, but I think you can make the claim because there wasn't this big gap either way. But I don't, unless Padilla and Petras somehow leave before the spring, which isn't going to happen, there is no chance that Iowa goes after a big name at quarterback. And I'm so done. Somebody went after me yesterday on YouTube for beating a dead horse on this issue. And I kind of almost replied to him. I said, thank you for acknowledging that because I'm tired of it too. I mean, I'm just tired of talking about it because it's such a ridiculous thing. I mean, some of our listeners here, the 70 people we have on right now, probably remember, if they follow my channel, From the Hawkeye of the Storm, they probably remember I did a live show a couple weeks ago that was literally, it was the whole premise of that show, Mark, was Iowa and the transfer portal at quarterback. We did a whole show on this stuff. And to know in hindsight, and not that I didn't have an idea, that in hindsight, it didn't do anything. It didn't mean anything because they never really interested at quarterback.
But we should be doing full shows on this. We talk college football all the time.
Yeah.
And this is important. And one question needs to be asked of Kirk Ferentz. And that question is, isn't it your job as the head football coach to go to whatever lengths within the rules to improve your football team?
I think there's a chance, and I don't know this because I did, by the way, I will say this. I did request an interview with Kirk. I've never done that before. I did recently request, and I'm sure now with Kirk, these issues, he's probably not going to, he doesn't do interviews with the mainstream Iowa media, but very often. But I did request that, so hopefully get him on the show at some point. I hope. Be great. But that would be I think there's a chance. There's a chance that Kirk Ferentz really does believe that Spencer Petras is the best option for this Iowa offense, that he's sort of the ideal quarterback for this Iowa offense. And I think part of it, my speculation is, I don't have this on a good source or anything like that, but I would not be shocked if part of it is, even though Spencer struggles and has struggled doing even the basic functions of that a Big Ten quarterback has to pull off, I think Kirk is comfortable with someone who he feels is a less risky choice, a guy who's not going to throw a lot of picks, who's not going to run and then fumble the ball. And we'd rather we would rather run on 2nd and 30 twice in a row to be able to get in better field position than have a guy who's capable of converting a 2nd and long, 2nd and 20. And I don't know. I'm not saying that Kirk Ferentz would ever admit to that, but I just think almost psychologically, perhaps that's going on, because he does really seem to like Spencer Petras. And it's got nothing to do with his character. I've said it before, Mark. We've talked about it many times. I think Spencer Petras seems like a really nice person, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's the best guy for the job. So I don't know. I'd love to hear from Kirk on that, honestly.
Well, to answer your question about whether Spencer Petras is the best quarterback to run the Iowa offense, yes, he is the best quarterback to run the 90th best offense in the country.
Well, can I just, before I went over this with Don, but anybody who's on here that missed our show with Don Patterson on Sunday, I just want to read through these. This can kind of be the final thing we do here, sure. Mark. I want to read through the, let's see here, the final rankings for Iowa's offense. Okay. These are after the bowl game was compiled, right? Total offense remember, this is out of 130 teams. Total offense, 121. Rushing offense, 102. Passing offense, 109. Passing efficiency, 117th. Third down percentage, 110th. Fourth down percentage, 125th. Red zone offense, 122nd. First downs, 104. And actually improved. Sacks allowed, 68. So that is right there. That last stat, Mark, should really be an eye-opener for people, because a lot of people have said that Iowa is fine at quarterback. It's the offensive line. That's the sole that I've had a couple people who have swore by what they view as a fact that Iowa cannot really improve the offense. Even if they go get a quarterback, they will not improve unless that O-line gets better. And that is, without any doubt, false. That's 100% incorrect, Mark. You can't make that. You cannot logically make that claim. Now, you can say it will never be elite unless the O-line gets better, but to say it will not improve, you're saying there's not a quarterback out there that's better than Spencer Petras and Alex Padilla, or you're saying that they're, even the quarterbacks that are better than what Iowa currently has, that they can't produce any better than these two guys with this offensive line? I don't believe that. And I do believe the offensive line will get better, for the record. I don't know how much better. I believe it will get better, even with Tyler Linderbaum leaving, which we haven't talked about yet. I know that's recent news. But the fact that Iowa actually went up by 19 spots in the FBS rankings in sacks allowed in one game. Now, of course, you have to weigh all the bowl games were a factor, but that says right there, there wasn't pressure on Spencer Petras all day in that Citrus Bowl, Mark. They went up 19 spots off of one performance. They're 68th in the country in sacks allowed, which isn't great, but that's not terrible when you look at the rest of the offense. So the offensive line blocked well for Petras during the Citrus Bowl. Mark, did it result in better offensive play besides the running game? The running game looked better, but again, that's got nothing to do with Spencer Petras or Alex Padilla. Did the passing game look better, in your opinion?
No.
It looked the exact same. It's looked all year. I mean, It just looked the exact same. I don't care if Petras has taken sacks or not. It looked the exact same. So don't tell me that better quarterback play would not help Iowa's offense unless the offensive line gets better, because I saw some significant improvement from that offensive line during bowl prep, because we saw it on the field in Orlando on January 1st, and certainly will help, but that's not, as I've said over and over again, multiple issues require multiple solutions. But at the same time, I said it on my podcast this week, Mark, it's clear that Alex Padilla, Spencer Petras, and Joey Labus are the guys in the spring. So as Iowa fans, I'm not going to sit here and hate on them. I'm an Iowa guy. I'm not trying to sound like I'm just a bitter fan. So at this point, Mark, what else can I do but hope for the best and root for these guys? I don't want to see anybody fail because it's obvious that there aren't going to be the changes that I would prefer. And I'm not the coach. I don't have the power to make those changes. But all you can do now as a fan, even if you're upset by the decision making from the Iowa staff and recruiting people, just root for these guys who are on the roster. Root for Petras, root for Labus, root for Padilla. I have no reason to think all three of them aren't great people. So I wish all of them success, and especially when they're here at Iowa. Now, I will say, hold on a second. This comment from Erica, I have a problem with this comment, though, too, Erica. When you say the QB is the issue, see, I don't agree with that either. It's not the only issue, right, Mark? Am I going too far with this? It's not the only issue. Offensive line is an issue, and I understand what she's saying here because she's upset about the quarterback situation, like a lot of people are. But I'm seeing it from both sides. There's not one issue. I do happen to think that quarterback and offensive line are basically 1A and 1B. And then maybe, play calling schematics might be 2A and 2B, But there are multiple issues, and I think there are some you're not going to produce these types of offensive rankings unless there are a number of issues. Is that fair, Mark? You're just not going to.
Yeah, because every offense in the country has deficiencies. But this one is not exceptional in any one unit on offense, and it's well below par in 2 of the 4 units, including receivers and running backs into that 4 components.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to pick on Eric here. I do see, as she said in the second part of her comment, the biggest issue is the fact that the coaches refuse to do anything about it. But I'm just saying that there also are issues away from the quarterback position completely. I still think stubbornness defensively, even though the defense was really elite, Mark, and it's been elite for quite a while. The Purdue game is a perfect example of some stubbornness that needs to be uprooted from the defensive philosophy. And that's on Phil Parker, who is one of the best. He's one of the best defensive coordinators in the country, in my opinion. But that's still something he can get better at. He's not infallible. That's something that certainly I'm hoping he's looking at this offseason saying, good Lord, we got to figure out why we can't defend Purdue's receivers.
Absolutely. Keep pounding that drum.
And Hugo Maine, just for the record, I see this comment here. They could use a receiver over 6 feet. They do have Jacob Bostic coming in as a freshman. He won't be enrolling early, but he'll be here this fall. He's, I think, 6'2", really thin guy. He's going to have to bulk up. Hopefully can do that. Right? We've seen skinny receivers. Amir Smith-Marset is a perfect example of a guy who was over 6 feet tall and never really got real big, bulky physically. If I've heard people say that, I've even made that comment to Don at times. Perhaps they need a little bit more size on the outside because trying to run a couple guys who are under 6 foot in Reganey and Tracy and then Arlen Bruce, who's like 5'9", your one guy that has the ability to catch over someone is Keegan Johnson. He's only maybe 6'1". So yeah, maybe they get Jacob Bostic to step into a role and be a role receiver. And I'm assuming the rest of those guys, the good news is another thing we didn't talk about, Mark, Charlie Jones is coming back. That helps. He's a playmaker, and I think he has the ability, if Iowa can get receivers more involved, that's another big thing. They got to get receivers more involved. They can do that. They've got weapons now. Keegan Johnson and Arlen Bruce will be a year older. They've got Reganey, who's experienced, who's a veteran. And then you've got a dynamic Charlie Jones. I think they have a good mix of receivers right there, just those top 4.